Good evening. It's 6 o'clock on Wednesday, August 31st, 2016. Welcome and thank you for joining us tonight for the English edition of Aura News, where we bring you today's top stories translated into English every weeknight. Yesterday, members of Parliament adopted the vetting law with 88 votes in favor and an abstention. The temporary re-evaluation of the judges and prosecutors for the Republic of Albania, also known as the vetting law, which paves way towards implementing the new constitution and establishing new justice institutions, was adopted without the opposition's votes. The Union for Human Rights Party MP, Mr. Dule, abstained. Opposition members abandoned the plenary session, which began 30 minutes late, and once again showed the contrasting attitudes between the majority and the opposition regarding this law. Democrat MPs Sali Berisha and Edward Halimi declared that the vetting law contradicts the Constitution and allows the Prime Minister to have control over the new justice system. Meanwhile, Prime Minister Edi Rama expressed his determination that the reform will be implemented, sparing no politician, judge, or prosecutor who has violated the law. The Assembly Speaker, Ilir Mehta, spoke on behalf of the Socialist Movement for Integration Parliamentary Group. Mr. Mehta declared that the opposition's claims about the bill were not convincing. We are too late for the vetting law deadlines to complete the reforms process and fulfill the obligations for the European integration process. I am sorry that the time made available was not used efficiently. I have made many efforts to help consensus. As Parliament Speaker, I have offered the opposition representatives every opportunity to reach consensus. The opposition's arguments do not seem convincing. I do not see anything to hold back the opposition's vote, said the Assembly Speaker. An Aura News journalist asked the DP MP, Horida Tabaku, what the opposition will do now, and she replied that the opposition will make a decision for whether it will take this law to the Constitutional Court or not. Meanwhile, after the adoption of the law, the Prime Minister, in a media outlet, called the vote a clear message to all corrupt judges and prosecutors in the country. The 88 votes in favor of adopting the law included 5 members of the Party for Justice, Integration and Unity. The European Union's mission, Euralius, welcomes the approval of the vetting law in Albanian Parliament. The EU mission considers the implementation of the law very important as it paves the way to assess judges and prosecutors. In a statement that reads, Euralius welcomes the approval of this very important piece of legislation implementing the constitutional amendments approved on July 22, 2016. By implementing this law, an evaluation process will initiate for the judges and prosecutors, members of the Constitutional Court and the High Court, legal advisors in the Constitutional Court and High Court, legal assistants in the administrative courts, and legal assistants in the General Prosecution Office. The evaluation process will be based on the assets check, assets and their sources, background check, connections with crime and criminals, and professionalism of the judges and prosecutors, their proficiency. This law paves the path towards the increase of trust by the citizens in the judiciary. Euralius gave its reaction in that statement. Also, the U.S. Embassy responded yesterday to the adoption of the vetting law in a statement which reads, the United States Embassy welcomes the decision of the Albanian Parliament to adopt the first implementation law of the judicial reform. This important law will begin the process for vetting prosecutors and judges. We applaud those members of Parliament who voted in favor of this important step in carrying out the constitutional amendments passed unanimously on July 22nd. We look forward to the full and timely approval of the remaining implementing laws for this critical reform, which enjoys the support of the overwhelming majority of Albanians. Prime Minister Edi Rama and Assembly Speaker Ilir Mehta held a meeting in one of the capital's restaurants. Sources say the working lunch meeting lasted over 2 hours. The meeting between the two allies comes after the Prime Minister's live Facebook conference yesterday, where he stated he would meet with his ally in governance to discuss the future of their coalition. The meeting between the Assembly Speaker and the Prime Minister also comes after the important adoption phase of the first law in the judicial reform. At the end of the meeting, Mr. Mehta declared that they discussed the reconstructed Shkodra Stadium. Regarding the coalition, the Assembly Speaker said there is no reason to talk about its future. The majority's candidate continues with intensive meetings in Dibra villages. He promised subventions in agriculture and farming to the residents of Dibra's surrounding areas. The majority's candidate was accompanied by the Minister of Finance and Mr. Juknuri, who is the Minister of Energy and the Socialist Party's coordinator for the Dibra region. The Minister of Finance promised more investments and once again confirmed the construction of Arbery Road. It is a serious project to the government, and I want to emphasize that this government will construct the Arbery and Dibra roads, said the minister. Meanwhile, the Socialist coordinator for Dibra rejected the energy promises made by the opposition's candidate. I am listening to the other candidate's promises. He is promising things that are not in the City Hall's power. He says energy will be paid by the City Hall's budget. This is an electoral lie, declared Mr. Juknuri. The majority's mayoral candidate also promised village residents that he will make investments in irrigation. Candidates for Dibra's mayor continue with their electoral campaigns. The opposition's candidate met with residents of 3 villages to whom he promised improvement of infrastructure. He said he has a special project for investing in infrastructure and promised construction of 2 urban centers in Dibra. Road infrastructure will be my priority. There have been 600 million euros set aside from the state budget for investments, but we have not seen any investments in Dibra. Half of the money is not being invested and half is being used to steal the votes, declared the opposition's candidate, adding that Arbery Road and roads which connect the villages with the centers will be his focus if he is elected Dibra's mayor. The Democrat MP Flamur Noka, who has associated with the opposition's candidate in his electoral meetings, accused the Prime Minister of blocking the Arbery Road work and of asking for a bribe from the Chinese company. Rama blocked the investment for Arbery Road. He wanted to take a bribe from the Chinese company. Arbery Road was started by the Democratic Party and will be finished by us, declared the Democrat MP. Another Tirana kindergarten reconstruction was finished thanks to the municipality of Tirana. Administrative Unit 1's kindergarten now offers a larger space for children with a completely reconstructed interior and property, as well as a playground. During the inauguration, Tirana's mayor, Ariane Villiers, declared that he continues to keep his promise for reconstructing 23 kindergartens before the start of the new academic year. This is the 18th out of 23 kindergartens we have reconstructed. We have a week's time to finish the remaining 5 kindergartens and keep our promise to reconstruct all of Tirana's kindergartens. Next week, when children return from their vacations, they will find a modern infrastructure. Children are the future of the city, and taking care of this generation is of primary importance for City Hall, declared the mayor, who praised the contribution of business owners who have supported the City Hall initiatives. The Prime Minister elected Zana Chella as the new director of the National Theatre of Opera and Ballet after the previous director resigned for personal reasons. This appointment marks Zana Chella's return to this duty after 13 years. She was the director of the National Theatre of Opera and Ballet from 2000 to 2003, when Edi Rama was the Minister of Culture. During that time, Ms. Chella undertook the reformation of the Theatre of Opera and Ballet, returning opera shows to the theatre after a decade's absence. Zana Chella was the author and producer of a series of artistic programs, including founding and managing the International Opera Festival Marie Craya for 17 years, where hundreds of talented young people from around the world compete. That's all for our English edition this evening. Please join us again Monday through Saturday at 6 p.m. for your local news in English. My name is Mari, and on behalf of Aura News, thank you and good night.